That year, they bought their first property in the city of Antelope. Within a year and a half after their arrival, the Rajneesh not only had their own city of Rajneeshpuram, but they completely controlled the city of Antelope.
Enough sannyasins were moved into Antelope virtually overnight to outvote the permanent residents and take control of the town.
Once they became in control of the city of Antelope's government, the Rajneeshis more than doubled the water rates for the city of Antelope. They quadrupled the fire rates for the city of Antelope. And in all of this process, they have not added any additional services. It is just money that is rolling into the city treasury, which eventually finds its way into the Rajneesh treasury.
The Rajneesh City Council has contracted with the city of Rajneeshpuram for almost all of Antelope's services. For instance, they've contracted with Rajneeshpuram for emergency police protection, for building inspection. We pay a Rajneeshi attorney $100 an hour, garbage collection, street maintenance. Street maintenance, they haven't graded the streets since they took over. But we are being taxed for that, and all our tax money is going right straight down to Rajneeshpuram.
Margaret Hill was the mayor of Antelope before the newcomers arrived.
One of the things that we have found most irritating is their habit of not really telling the truth. I have a letter from David Knapp, for instance, saying that they have no intention of taking over the city of Antelope, which they did within a matter of months after that statement. Dave Knapp, Krishnadeva, says, well, if I just had a little crystal ball, then I would know what was going to happen. Even though you catch them in a lie, they very blandly act as if, oh, nothing had happened.
The only time they've really told the truth was when Sheela stood under the sign in the lower end of town and said that she would have our property. She would tax us so high that we would have to sell our property to them at their price. And that's where we are right now. I think the thing that bothers me most right at this time about the Rajneesh is this constant patrol. We are being patrolled day and night. And early on, it was the elderly people that they concentrated on. I felt very intimidated by the Rajneesh presence in Antelope. It was something we lived with every day. They were ever present in the streets. They took license numbers. They would stand in front of your house with a camera. The very atmosphere that they created was so upsetting, it was devastating. Last summer I had a visitor, and he had scarcely arrived when my house was surrounded by Rajneeshis, some of them wearing guns on their hips. 3 sides of our house was absolutely surrounded, and I found that frightening. We called the sheriff immediately, and they weren't very interested in coming.
Intimidation by the Rajneeshis took more sophisticated forms. Lawsuits became the weapon of choice. Bhagwan has his own theory of the law.
Law does not allow you to live. It makes life so narrow that you have to find ways and means. And then comes the liar. He helps you to break the law and yet remain within law. That's his whole work. The liar is needed because the law creates on one hand the criminal and on another hand the liar, and both are the same.
The chief exponent of the Rajneesh legal philosophy is Swami Prem Naren. The Swami, formerly P.J. Tokes, was a partner in a politically powerful Los Angeles law firm. But as the #1 legal strategist for Rajneesh Foundation International, he directed an unrelenting attack on Antelope.
Right at the moment, I have 2 lawsuits pending against me. At one time, when I was mayor, during the period between March and June of 1982, there were 11 different litigations involving the Rajneesh and the city of Antelope. This was intolerable. There were only 45 people in Antelope when the Rajneeshis came, and our resources, our money, compared to their millions and millions of dollars, was simply inadequate. There was no way that we could stand up against that kind of harassment. We were simply wiped out.
The Rajneesh have sued me for $990,000, and the complaint says that I'm a religious bigot. I don't know where they'll get $990,000.
If legal harassment inspired anti-Rajneesh sentiment, Sheila Silverman's attacks on local residents inspired anger and disgust. Marcia Winchelman, whose husband had just died in a tragic accident, was singled out for a special assault.
At the second school board meeting, Sheila attacked me.
He shot himself because she was going around with another man. If the board wants to know, she might want to tell her children the honest truth.
She said that my husband had committed suicide and killed himself because I was having an affair, and that my children should know what kind of mother they had and what kind of father they had that was not able to cope. This was an outright lie. My husband and I were very happy, and he was very much a family man.
I have tried in every way possible to get either federal officials, state officials, and our county officials didn't seem to care at all. No one cared what happened to us. No one would listen.
Recently, the Rajneeshi-controlled city government, in the manner of every successful conqueror, changed the name of the little town of Antelope to Rajneesh.
After months and months of harassment, it was just more than we could take. We couldn't take any more.
Some of our older residents of this area, their brains are fossilized.
The people of Oregon, by and large, have not been that intelligent. They've not been that smart.
Oregonians have a long history of bigotry. It runs through their blood. It's unfortunate.
It's been absolutely devastating. It's a living nightmare.
In 1983, a group of dissident sannyasins calling themselves the Wild Geese wrote an open letter exposing criminal acts going on with the knowledge and support of the leaders of the Rajneesh Foundation International. Immigration fraud in the form of illegal marriages was a principal charge. Bob Harvey, employed as ranch manager, lived at Rajneesh Puram with his family.
Shortly after they purchased the ranch, there was only supposed to be like 26 or 27 people, and we had almost 100. The county commissioners were coming one day, and Sheila didn't want them to see all the foreigners that were there. So we loaded all the foreigners up on an old flatbed Chevy pickup we had there and hauled them down to the river house to hide them. One time the immigration came down, and it was announced over the radio to hide all the foreigners because the immigration was coming.
Illegal marriages gave the ashram controls and money.
Some of the marriages were arranged. For instance, one guy named Deva Prem married a lady named Jaya, and she hated him. But she was a foreigner and was one of the nurses, and therefore they wanted to keep her on the ranch, so those two got married. Another one that was arranged was a guy named Anageetan. We were working up above the ranch about 4 miles. He got a call on the radio telling him he had to be in at noon because he was getting married.